It's hard to believe that the once famous child actor of Leave It to Beaver, Stanley Fafara, had a miserable life after the film project ended. Struggling to find new success, Stanley fell into addiction, causing his entire dream fortune from Leave It to Beaver to disappear in an instant. After that, he had to face a homeless life, and even when he died, he did not have enough money to buy a tombstone. It can be said that Stanley Fafara's life is a very tragic tragedy, and we will explore it in this video. What are you waiting for? Let's get started now. We begin Stanley Fafara's story with little-known details about his childhood. While other actors of the same age were educated and raised in an entertainment environment by their parents, Stanley's starting point was completely opposite. His parents had no connections or experience in the entertainment industry. Despite this lack of industry ties, his mother harbored a strong desire to see her sons achieve stardom. Her determination was first directed toward her older son, Lucas "Tiger" Fafara. Tiger demonstrated an innate talent for performance at a young age, and recognizing this, his mother took the initiative to push him into the world of acting when he was just 7 years old. Tiger's early foray into acting was met with moderate success. He began securing small but notable roles in commercials and television westerns, which were popular genres at the time. These early accomplishments bolstered his mother's resolve and ambition for her son's futures in Hollywood. In 1957, buoyed by Tiger's initial successes, Stanley's mother decided to take a bold step. She brought both of her sons to a large open casting call for a new suburban family sitcom called Leave It to Beaver. This sitcom was a highly anticipated show that promised to capture the essence of American family life, and the casting call attracted many hopefuls looking to make their mark. At the casting call, Tiger was the primary focus, auditioning for the role of one of Beaver's friends. Given his previous experience, it seemed likely that he would catch the casting director's attention. However, fate had different plans. 8-year-old Stanley, who had mostly stayed in the background and let his older brother take the spotlight, unexpectedly drew the attention of the casting directors. Despite his quiet demeanor, Stanley's natural charm and stage presence shone through during the audition. This pivotal moment marked a significant turning point. Stanley's innate talent, which had remained largely unnoticed until then, suddenly became apparent to the casting directors. His performance displayed a unique blend of authenticity and charisma that outshone many of the other candidates. It was clear that Stanley possessed a special quality that resonated well on screen, even at such a young age. Stanley Fafara secured the recurring role of Hubert "Whitey" Whitney, one of Beaver Cleaver's mischievous best friends, on the iconic television show Leave It to Beaver. Meanwhile, his older brother Tiger was also cast in the series, taking on the role of Tooey Brown, a nerdy schoolmate of Beaver. This marked the beginning of parallel acting careers for the Fafara brothers, driven almost entirely by their mother's ambition and guidance. Suddenly thrust into the world of make-believe and Hollywood sets, Stanley's childhood became an unusual blend of the ordinary and the extraordinary. During filming, he inhabited the lively and often chaotic environment of a television set, where the rigid structures of a typical 1950s boyhood were replaced by the fluid and unpredictable nature of TV production. This setting demanded a level of professionalism and adaptability uncommon for children his age, as he navigated script readings, rehearsals, and takes under the watchful eyes of directors and crew members. Off the set, Stanley's life resembled that of any other suburban kid. He attended public schools near his home in suburban Los Angeles, where he participated in the typical activities of a schoolboy. However, balancing his dual roles as a student and a child actor presented unique challenges. While his peers focused solely on their studies and extracurricular activities, Stanley had to juggle schoolwork with his demanding filming schedule. The dichotomy of Stanley's life meant he experienced the best of both worlds. On the one hand, he enjoyed the camaraderie and normalcy of school life, where he was just another student among his friends. On the other hand, his role as Whitey Whitney on Leave It to Beaver opened doors to experiences and opportunities few children could imagine. He had the chance to work with talented actors and directors, learn the intricacies of television production, and build a name for himself in the entertainment industry. Despite the seeming glamour of his television career, the reality of working on set was far from straightforward. The hours were long, and the demands of the job required a level of discipline and commitment that set Stanley apart from other children. The support and guidance from his mother were crucial during this time, as she managed his schedule, ensured he maintained his education, and helped him navigate the complexities of child stardom. Surrounded by adult directors, producers, cameramen, and fellow child actors such as the experienced Jerry Mathers, who played the titular role of Beaver Cleaver, Stanley Fafara experienced a unique and accelerated childhood. This environment required Stanley to mature faster than his classmates, as he adeptly balanced the dual responsibilities of being a regular student and a budding actor from the tender age of 8. While this lifestyle might have been stressful for some children, many child stars, including Stanley, found it exhilarating. The thrill of playing make-believe, coupled with the breaks from school, provided an extremely stimulating environment. The excitement of seeing oneself on national television instilled a rapid sense of pride and confidence. This blend of fantasy and reality was particularly appealing to Stanley, who thrived in this dual existence. Stanley's ease and enthusiasm for acting were evident as he embraced his role on Leave It to Beaver. For nearly 6 continuous years, he portrayed Hubert Whitey Whitney, the affable, occasionally naughty prankster and one of Beaver's best friends. His portrayal of Whitey resonated with audiences across America, who fell in love with the lovable troublemaker. The show's success meant that Stanley spent a significant portion of his formative years on set. The structure of his days differed vastly from that of his peers. While other children attended school full-time and participated in typical after-school activities, Stanley's days were a blend of academic pursuits and acting commitments. On set, he was surrounded by a professional crew, and the experience required him to adhere to rigorous schedules and perform under pressure, all while maintaining the childlike spontaneity required for his role. Despite the demanding nature of his job, Stanley found joy and fulfillment in his work. Acting became second nature to him, and he handled his responsibilities with great aplomb. His ability to seamlessly switch between the roles of a student and an actor was a testament to his resilience and adaptability. The nurturing environment provided by his mother and the support from the cast and crew of Leave It to Beaver played a crucial role in helping him manage this complex lifestyle. Stanley's portrayal of Whitey Whitney left a lasting impression on the show's audience. Whitey's character, with his endearing mix of mischief and charm, became a beloved figure in American television. Stanley's natural talent and on-screen charisma brought Whitey to life, making him a memorable part of the iconic series. For nearly 6 years, from 1957 through 1963, Stanley Fafara charmed American audiences as Hubert Whitey Whitney in the beloved family sitcom Leave It to Beaver. Alongside veteran child actor Jerry Mathers, who played the titular role of Theodore Beaver Cleaver, Stanley helped bring to life the adventures and misadventures of 1950s middle-class suburban family life. Set in the fictional town of Wrenwood, the show offered amusing and heartwarming glimpses into the world through the eyes of the curious and spirited Beaver and his neighborhood gang of friends. Stanley's character, Whitey, is a prominent and endearing member of this group. With his blonde hair and cheerful disposition, Whitey quickly became a fan favorite. Known for his penchant for harmless mischief, he added a lively dynamic to the show's narrative. The episode plots frequently revolved around Beaver and Whitey's schoolboy adventures, capturing the innocence and exuberance of childhood. In various episodes, audiences watched as Whitey and Beaver navigated a series of entertaining escapades, from joining the school football team to attempting stand-up comedy and even brainstorming ways to earn money for a toy boat. Whitey was often the instigator of these crazy schemes. His role as Beaver's partner in crime provided countless moments of humor and relatability. Whether they were sneaking into places they weren't supposed to be or concocting elaborate plans that inevitably went awry, Whitey and Beaver's camaraderie and antics were central to the show's charm. Whitey's mischievous nature often led to comical situations that exasperated family members like Ward Cleaver, Beaver's strict but patient father, and even their teachers. Despite the trouble they got into, there was always a sense of genuine friendship and loyalty between Whitey and Beaver. Stanley's portrayal of Whitey showcased a kind-hearted boy who, despite his knack for getting into trouble, always had Beaver's back. This unwavering support highlighted the deeper themes of friendship and loyalty that resonated with the show's audience. The chemistry between Stanley Fafara and Jerry Mathers was palpable on screen, and their performances contributed significantly to the enduring success of Leave It to Beaver. Through Whitey's character, Stanley brought to life the quintessential mischievous yet lovable friend, making a lasting impression on viewers. His natural acting ability and charming presence ensured that Whitey Whitney became a beloved character in American television history. The show's producers created a rich tapestry of friends and neighborhood characters that expanded beyond the central Cleaver family, adding depth and vibrancy to the fictional suburban world of Wrenwood. This intricate world included Stanley's elder brother, Tiger Fafara, who played the shy, bespectacled Tooey Brown, a friend of Beaver's older brother Wally. For about 3 years, the Fafara brothers had the unique opportunity to act alongside each other, bringing to life 2 iconic boys in this nostalgic 1950s universe. Stanley's portrayal of Whitey, with his cheerful disposition and penchant for harmless mischief, contrasted with Tiger's portrayal of the more reserved and studious Tooey. Their on-screen interactions, although not frequent, added a layer of authenticity to the show, reflecting the genuine sibling bond they shared off-screen. The experience was a remarkable adventure for the 2 brothers, who were plunged rather unexpectedly into regular acting roles at a young age. Despite the pressures and demands of their newfound careers, they managed to have great fun, navigating the surreal world of television production while still enjoying the simple pleasures of childhood. Their mother's unwavering support and ambition played a crucial role in managing their schedules and ensuring they maintained a balance between their professional and personal lives. Leave It to Beaver ended in 1963 after a successful 6-year run comprising 234 episodes. The show left an indelible mark on American pop culture, capturing the essence of post-war suburban life with warmth, humor, and a sense of innocence. Stanley Fafara's performance as Whitey, alongside Jerry Mathers' portrayal of Beaver, helped cement the show's legacy. Together, they became national symbols of the innocence and simplicity that characterized 1950s America. The impact of Leave It to Beaver extended far beyond its original broadcast. The Cleaver family and characters like Whitey became frozen in the pop culture consciousness as happy symbols of simpler times, providing a comforting counterpoint to the more turbulent and complex eras that followed. The show's depiction of childhood adventures, family dynamics, and neighborhood friendships resonated deeply with viewers, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to evoke nostalgia and admiration. As America moved on from the 1950s into the more turbulent 1960s and beyond, the enduring appeal of Leave It to Beaver and characters like Whitey Whitney remained. Stanley Fafara's contributions to the show were integral to its success, making him a cherished part of television history. The end of Leave It to Beaver in 1963 marked a significant upheaval for its lead child actors, Jerry Mathers and Stanley Fafara. Having spent most of their formative years immersed in their roles as Beaver and Whitey, their identities had become deeply intertwined with these beloved characters. The show's conclusion left both boys grappling with the loss of structure and attention that had defined their childhoods. At just 14 years old, Stanley found the transition particularly challenging. For nearly 6 years, his life had revolved around the character of Whitey, and the constant presence of cameras, directors, and the bustling environment of a TV studio had become his norm. When the series ended, he suddenly found himself without the familiar routine that had provided stability and purpose. Stanley enrolled at North Hollywood High School following the end of Leave It to Beaver, but the adjustment to a regular school system proved difficult. Accustomed to the unique rhythms and rules of television production, he struggled to fit in with his peers who had spent their lives in traditional educational settings. The regular school environment felt alien to him, and he longed for the camaraderie and excitement of his days on set. The fame and perks associated with his role on Leave It to Beaver had been intoxicating, and Stanley yearned for those days. The recognition, the fan mail, and the sense of being part of something special were hard to let go of. This longing made his inability to secure substantial acting roles after the age of 14 all the more painful. The industry that had once embraced him now seemed to have moved on, leaving him feeling discarded and irrelevant. The transition from child star to regular teenager was a tumultuous period for Stanley. The adulation and structured environment of the set provided a buffer from the challenges of growing up, and without it, he found himself struggling to navigate his new reality. His attempts to re-enter the entertainment industry were met with limited success, and he faced the harsh reality that the world of acting had few roles for teenagers who were no longer the cute, innocent children they once portrayed. Stanley's struggle was not uncommon among former child actors. The sudden shift from the limelight to obscurity can be jarring, especially when one's sense of self is so closely tied to their on-screen persona. For Stanley, the end of Leave It to Beaver signaled not just the end of a job, but the end of an era in his life. It was a period marked by confusion and a sense of loss as he tried to find his place in a world that no longer revolved around the fictional neighborhood of Wrenwood. Struggling to adjust to a world outside of his well-known role as Whitey, Stanley began to drink heavily. He briefly found solace in the music scene, moving in with the popular band Paul Revere and the Raiders, but this period also marked the beginning of his recreational drug use. Without the structure of the show and lacking the parental support needed to navigate this new phase of life, Stanley floundered through his mid-teen years. The entertainment industry, known for its fickleness, had quickly moved on from the child stars who had headlined its hit shows just a few years earlier. For Stanley, the abrupt end of his acting career was compounded by a lack of guidance and counseling, resources that were not readily available to young celebrities of that era. Stanley's co-star, Jerry Mathers, experienced similar adjustment troubles, as neither of them had developed the skills necessary to transition smoothly into regular adulthood. Their identities had been so closely tied to their on-screen personas that they found it challenging to forge new paths. The absence of counseling and support systems exacerbated their struggles, leaving them ill-equipped to handle the dramatic changes in their lives. Desperate to cling to the remnants of his Hollywood fame, Stanley continued to pursue acting roles but found little success. His family, concerned about his well-being, urged him to move to his sister's home in Jamaica in an attempt to start anew. However, the change of scenery did little to curb Stanley's substance abuse. He continued to struggle with addiction, which impeded his ability to sustain real-world jobs, such as painting. The stark contrast between Stanley's early success and his subsequent downfall was glaring. Just 5 years earlier, he had been a child prodigy, contributing significantly to his family's income through his steady acting checks. Now, barely 20 years old, Stanley found himself aimless and addicted, a sadly common trajectory for many child stars of the 1960s. The rapid descent from fame highlighted the darker side of child stardom, where the initial excitement and adulation gave way to profound challenges. The lack of adequate support and the pressures of early fame took a heavy toll on Stanley, as it did on many others in his position. In 1972, Stanley Fafara returned to Los Angeles after years of wandering aimlessly in the aftermath of his childhood stardom. Unfortunately, his life took a downward spiral marked by addiction, petty crime, incarceration, and bouts of homelessness. Upon his return, he experienced a brief marriage, which quickly ended in divorce, leaving him even more isolated and troubled. Unable to revive his acting career, Stanley turned to dealing drugs as a means of income, still trying to recapture the excitement and status that his fame had once provided. Throughout the 1970s, his life was marred by severe alcoholism and substance abuse. He once admitted to a reporter that his struggles with addiction had started as early as age 14, right after Leave It to Beaver ended. The abrupt loss of the show's structure and fame had left a void that Stanley attempted to fill with alcohol and drugs. Despite having grown up in suburban middle-class comfort, supported by the steady earnings from his television career, Stanley found himself penniless and directionless just over a decade after the end of Leave It to Beaver. The money that had once flowed from his acting checks was long gone, squandered on his addictions and the lifestyle they necessitated. Stanley's descent into addiction led him into a life of petty crime. To sustain his substance dependencies, he committed various minor offenses, which eventually resulted in multiple incarcerations. Each stint in jail further distanced him from the life he once knew and the person he once was. His criminal record and ongoing substance abuse made it nearly impossible for him to find legitimate work or stability. By the late 1970s, Stanley had hit rock bottom. He was often homeless, drifting through the streets of Los Angeles, a far cry from the suburban comfort and modest fame he enjoyed as a child. The stark contrast between his early years as a beloved child actor and his adult life of addiction and poverty was a tragic testament to the perils of early fame without adequate support systems. By the early 1980s, Stanley Fafara's battle with addiction reached a critical point. His desperation led him to commit multiple pharmacy burglaries in an attempt to fuel his growing narcotic needs. Each arrest painted a grim picture of a former child star now lost in a cycle of crime and substance abuse. His distraught parents bailed him out after his 7th offense, hoping each time it would be the last. However, after yet another burglary, Stanley was sentenced to a year in prison. This stint behind bars marked a significant low in his life, but unfortunately, it was not the turning point his family had hoped for. After serving his sentence, Stanley's life saw little improvement. He struggled to maintain any semblance of stability, oscillating between brief periods of menial employment and returning to his familiar vices. He took on jobs in construction and worked in restaurants, but these stints were short-lived. The lure of addiction was always stronger, pulling him back into a destructive pattern. In the mid-1980s, seeking a fresh start, Stanley relocated to Portland with a girlfriend. However, this move did not bring the hoped-for change. Instead, he found only temporary jobs and soon became enmeshed in the local drug scene. His battle with drug addiction worsened, and his physical health began to decline rapidly. The late 1980s through the 1990s were particularly harsh for Stanley. His addiction led to a gaunt, emaciated appearance, far removed from the wholesome image of Whitey Whitney that had once endeared him to millions. Attempts at rehabilitation were frequent, but ultimately unsuccessful. Each stint in rehab provided only a temporary respite from his addiction. The weight of his struggles and the lack of sustained support systems meant that he inevitably fell back into old habits. Stanley's once promising future had devolved into a series of relapses and recoveries, each more disheartening than the last. Almost 4 decades removed from his days as Whitey on Leave It to Beaver, Stanley was a shadow of his former self. The child star who had once brought joy to audiences with his cheerful disposition and mischievous antics was now an obscure fallen star. He was addicted, emaciated, and homeless, often finding himself wanted by the law. His life had become a tragic cycle of addiction and crime, completely unrecognizable from his early years in the limelight. In later interviews with reporters, Stanley Fafara reflected on his stunning downfall, attributing it to a combination of factors. He acknowledged being ill-prepared for life outside of the spotlight after his childhood fame, citing the lack of support and guidance from the studio as a significant contributing factor. Additionally, he admitted that his early vices, which went unchecked, played a role in his downward spiral. Despite the financial comfort provided by his success as Whitey, Stanley lamented that the iconic role ironically became the catalyst for his downfall, robbing him of a future he had never been adequately prepared to navigate. Stanley's story was tragically common among washed-out child entertainers of his era, many of whom lacked the safeguards and support systems that are now in place to protect young stars. The extreme vicissitudes of his journey, from fame to anonymity, shocked and saddened those who remembered him from his days as a beloved TV star. However, in 1995, Stanley experienced a late-life epiphany that would change the course of his life. Recognizing the need for change, he diligently embarked on a journey to conquer his substance abuse struggles. Seeking help at a Portland addiction recovery house called Central City Concern, Stanley achieved sobriety for the first time in decades. This marked a significant turning point in his life, offering hope for a brighter future. Additionally, Stanley took steps to reconnect with his family, including his daughter Tanya and infant granddaughter. This newfound connection provided him with a sense of purpose and motivation to maintain his sobriety, offering hope for lasting stability and reconciliation. However, despite his efforts to turn his life around, Stanley faced another formidable challenge. It was revealed that he had contracted hepatitis C during his years of drug addiction, a condition that gradually deteriorated his health. Despite this setback, Stanley remained determined to persevere, facing his health struggles with courage and resilience. In his final years, Stanley lived quietly in a subsidized single-occupancy apartment in downtown Portland. He relied on disability assistance checks to make ends meet, grappling with persistent poverty. Despite the hardships he faced, Stanley remained committed to maintaining his sobriety and finding peace in the midst of adversity. Despite once earning over $500 per episode for his role as Whitey on Leave It to Beaver, Stanley Fafara found himself surviving on meager monthly aid checks of just $475 in the last decade of his life. The contrast between his former success and his current circumstances could not have been starker. Gone was the adulation and recognition he once enjoyed as a beloved TV star. Now he was simply an aging, recovering addict named Stanley, forgotten by the public and struggling to make ends meet. In the twilight of his life, Stanley lived a quiet existence, far removed from the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. His days were spent grappling with the challenges of poverty and health issues, a far cry from the excitement of his earlier years. Despite his best efforts to rebuild his life after years of addiction, he remained largely unknown to the world at large. On September 20, 2003, tragedy struck as Stanley Fafara passed away suddenly from complications during hernia surgery, coincidentally on his 54th birthday. His death marked the end of a tumultuous journey, characterized by highs and lows, triumphs and tribulations. In a cruel twist of fate, the struggling actor could not afford a simple headstone to mark his final resting place, underscoring the dramatic ups and downs of his life. Despite his obscurity and death, Stanley's passing did not go unnoticed by those who knew him. Attendees at the small funeral held at St. Elizabeth of Hungary Church in Portland rallied together to ensure that the former star received a dignified farewell. Collection plates were passed around to cover the $226 crematorium bill. For 13 long years, Stanley Fafara's final resting place was an unmarked grave in the impoverished Redland Pioneer Cemetery, a somber reminder of the forgotten legacy of a once-beloved 1950s pop icon. Beneath the grass lay the remains of the child actor who had brought joy to millions of American households as the endearing scamp Whitey on the iconic TV show Leave It to Beaver. Yet his grave bore no indication of his former fame, concealing the fact that a television pioneer lay beneath the earth. In 2016, however, a ray of light shone upon Stanley's memory as Father Jim Kolb officiated both the funeral and the long-awaited blessing of a headstone. This simple yet significant gesture finally solidified the former actor's legacy, ensuring that his contribution to television history would not be forgotten. As neighbors gathered by the grave in Redland, their recollections of Beaver were vague at best, and none remembered Whitey or the child who had brought him to life for close to a decade on America's must-see TV show. Stanley's story epitomized the fleeting nature of fame and the harsh realities of stardom's twilight years. For many child entertainers like Stanley, deprived of normal childhoods under the relentless glare of studio lights, the future often turns unforgiving. As each year passes, fresh young hopefuls arrive in Hollywood, while retired former child stars are relegated to the shadows of obscurity. The cycle continues unabated as new Beaver and Whitey pairs entertain audiences on the next hit sitcom. Yet perhaps the tragic trajectory of pioneers like Stanley Fafara will serve as cautionary tales, prompting the implementation of better support systems for childhood performers. Society owes these children who sacrificed so much to entertain millions protection from the vicious highs and lows of the fame cycle. What do you think about the tragedy that Stanley Fafara faced after Leave It to Beaver? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.